It's 6:30 on April 24th, 2023, and I'm calling to order this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, we have regrets from Councillor Nanda, and all the rest of us are here. I'd invite everybody to join Council in O Canada. Thank you, everybody. In 1820, Indigenous people here began welcoming settlers from all over the empire. Soon they were helping slaves escaping from the U.S. to settle here too. Today, our Indigenous founding partners are still here enjoying the land with us. They fish and camp under their treaty rights. Indigenous people in their thousands also live with us as neighbors and friends. Our Indigenous, white, and Black settlers created a community with an attractive degree of harmony and prosperity. And in 1857, Ontario gave official recognition of Oakville as a town. At Town Hall, all of these years later, we fly the flag of the Mississaugas of the Credit beside the flags of Oakville, Ontario, and Canada. We fly these flags together to acknowledge our origins. People from all over the world are attracted to the livability that we have created. We offer newcomers a warm spirit of welcome. We offer everyone our founding story so everyone knows what we are part of. We feel sorrow and distress for acts of racism and intolerance suffered across Canada and here at home. We want our future to be equitable and inclusive for everyone. The path of truth and reconciliation could unite us all. Please keep well, stay safe, and let us on Council know of any chance to be helpful to you and yours. Please let us know anytime that you can help increase Oakville's harmony, prosperity, and livability. Now, as I've already mentioned, Councillor Nanda's regrets this evening. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, we'll move on to the consent items. We have, or to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous council meetings. As listed in the agenda, you've got 5 sets. Councillor Lischina, thank you for the motion. I need a seconder. Councillor Elger, thank you. Any objection or corrections? There being none, that carries. Thank you, both of you. Next item is our standing committee report from the 2023 Budget Committee, and the recommendations the recommendations that have come to us from their special meeting on April 18th include a possible motion that the Budget Committee size and composition be amended to reflect a membership of, we'll have to fill that blank in, council members, and that revisions to the procedure bylaw affecting this change be brought forward and presented at the council meeting later in the spring, and that notice requirements be waived with regard to this amendment. Now, I would suggest that what we do is enlarge the membership of the committee to all of council, just like we do for the Planning and Development Committee, which sits as a full council. And I'm open to motions. Who's got a motion? Councillor Lischina. All right. Councillor Haslett-Thiel.
Mayor Burton, can you just clarify for me with the clause that you just read out? Because that wasn't the clause that was in the Budget Committee's recommendation.
I've read a proposed motion or a possible motion drafted by the clerks that said that the Budget Committee size and composition be amended to reflect a membership of blank, and Councilor Lischina has moved, of all council members, and that revisions to the procedure bylaw affecting this change be brought forward and presented at the council meeting later in the spring, and that notice requirements be waived with regard to this amendment. Would you like to have a different number of council members on the Budget Committee?
I'd like to suggest that from a representation perspective, that if we achieved one per ward with yourself, Mayor Burton, we would create an equitable representation. We would allow greater participation in the process, and I also believe that it will help provide opportunities for leadership for members of council that haven't had that opportunity.
Okay, then what you need to do is defeat Councilor Lischina's motion.
Can I just ask from a procedural perspective, can we have a motion to defer a decision on this until we receive the procedural bylaw in May? I believe deferring a motion is actually a point of order ahead of
Well,
the motion on the floor.
it's not a point of order. It's a motion that's always in order and it's not debatable. And I would, and yes, that motion's in order. If I take it that you're moving that?
Well, I'd like to move to defer it because I'm not sure what the rush is to waive the procedure bylaw or to get to a decision to go to all of council. I think I want to respect the staff's ability to come back with options, and that allow us to consider that along with the procedural bylaw changes that Councillor Dudek suggested we consider earlier this year or at inauguration. I think that it's respectful of staff, it's respectful of, there's not an urgency to make this decision, and democratically I think that that would be something that I'd ask people to consider, and so the deferral would simply to be allow us to then receive the procedural bylaw changes and consider it at that time.
All right, is there a second for your deferral motion? Sure. Councillor Elgar. Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I support what Councillor Haslett-Thiel is putting forward. I checked with the clerk earlier today because I was thinking in terms of the request for report that was tabled early, as Councillor Haslett-Thiel said at our inaugural meeting, where I asked for a report to come back regarding committee appointments and maybe changing various, what shall I say, numbers on committees, terms of service on a respective committee. And when I checked with the clerk, she said she'd prefer that we wait and do it all in its entirety, especially given the transparency in terms of notification to the public. And so it's not going to be a long process. It will be fairly short from what I understand. So my preference would be let's do it all at once and do it properly versus handpicking something and doing it on the fly. Very
well. Any other speakers? Then I'll put the motion on the deferral. I'll put to a vote the motion to defer. Is there any objection to the deferral motion? Councillor Adams? Any others? The deferral motion carries. It was close, Councillor Adams. Can we get a motion to receive the report of the committee? Councillor McNeese, thank you. And I'm going to ask for a seconder, Madam Clerk. Councillor Dudek, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that carries. Thank you, everybody. Now we need a mover and a seconder to resolve into committee of the whole. Councillor Longo and Councillor Shi, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that carries. Council, you have several consent items and a confidential consent item not previously listed. I recommend that we go into camera for the confidential consent item, if you have questions on that. Otherwise, the report is, I mean, I don't think you're going to get anything additional to what you got in the report, but in the confidential report. So what's your pleasure on the consent items? Councillor O'Meara?
Thank you, Your Worship. If we could separate out 8.5, I have a couple of questions of staff on that one.
All right. Are you moving the rest?
Happy to.
Thank you. Councillor Haslett-Deal, do you want a separation?
Mayor Burton, I may be missing a page, but it's the financial results, 10.2. That's a discussion item, not a consent item. Is that correct?
It's discussion too.
10.2 is later in the meeting.
Okay, I seem to be missing a page. Yeah, no, I don't need to separate anything else out. Thank you.
All righty. Councillor Duddick? I saw,
I'd be pleased to second Councillor O'Meara's motion.
oh, we're in committee of the whole now,
Oh,
so.
of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always good to have a volunteer ready. Any objection to Councillor O'Meara's motion? There being none, the consent items except for 8.5 are adopted. And Councillor O'Meara, you have the floor for your questions on lot maintenance bylaw 2017-008 update, feeding wildlife.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just a question of staff. So we've got that up to a third offense can be $500, but then we don't talk about taking it to the provincial offences court. And there was a lot of sort of uptake from Hamilton that people could be fined up to $100,000 if caught feeding. I just want to clarify that we have a similar approach or procedure should we have repeat offenders, and that we have the same sort of potential for penalties as Burlington does through the provincial offences court.
Mr. Barrett?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to answer Councillor O'Meara's question. And yeah, we do always have the opportunity to proceed by way of Part 3 summons and go through the provincial offences court.
Okay, thank you for that. I also have read that, and I know this is always troubling with our bylaw officers, but in particular, again, in the one in Burlington, their bylaw officers have the right to enter private property and review and look to see what's going on, or check for wild without homeowner approval, I believe. Can you just clarify the private property element with our bylaw officers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor O'Meara. Yes, both the property standards and lot maintenance bylaws do allow officers to enter a property to verify if a violation has occurred.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last is a question, I don't know, perhaps it's for you or Director Mark, but if we are suspecting that this is going on, and it's very difficult to have eyewitnesses or go through a testifying act, are we considering buying some trail cameras or a few of them? Like, would we consider doing that sort of investigation if we've had an area that has that? If we suspect there's some sort of feeding going on, would we proceed to gather evidence ourselves through sort of some camera systems on our municipal woodlots or such, or how does that work? Because I think the evidence is important to gain to stop this behavior, because we do have some very unfortunate incidents, and I'm hoping that our staff are going to really go to that extra level to get the evidence they need to make sure that the people who are offending don't do so anymore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor O'Meara. That's a very good question, and we have discussed that as well in our discussions on how we're going to investigate this and other issues. And without giving too much away, I'd say we have considered that. That is an option. There are considerations if we were to go down that step, and privacy is one of those considerations. So every situation we'd have to look at on its own merit, but it is possible to do something like that if the circumstances arise that would allow for it.
Well, I thank you for that. I know the residents in Ward 1 and across the sort of ward, well, almost all the wards have had incidents there, and they appreciate anything that our municipal enforcement can do with that. So I appreciate that. And Mayor Burton, I'd be happy to move receipt of the item at the appropriate, if there are no other questions.
Thank you. You did already move it, and we just separated it out for discussion. You moved all of the consent items, including 9. Is there any objection to 8.5? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, that completes dealing with all of the consent items. And that brings us to item 10.1, the delegation of municipal powers and duties bylaw. And staff are available if required. And otherwise, I look for a motion. Councillor Duddick.
I'd be pleased to move it, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the vote. Any objection to the proposal? Madam Clerk, there being none, 10.1 carries. That brings us to 10.2, the 2022 financial results and surplus disposition. We have staff available for questions, and I would look for a motion. Councillor Chisholm, thank you. Any questions? She's got her hand up. I'm about to call on her. Maybe you'd like to come over and help me over here. Just shove in next to me. We'll co-chair. Councillor Hazlett-Deal.
Thanks for the teamwork. On the recommendation, number 0.8 references an additional budget committee meeting for June 19th, just out of consideration that we will have potentially a procedural bylaw vote, and I'm not sure, I'm going to look to staff. Should we leave that meeting as noted currently in the recommendation, or should we move it to after the council meeting or on another date, depending on what the decision is on the budget committee?
Councillor Hazlett-Deal, staff have advised me that they would recommend that we change item number 8 to read that an additional 2024 budget committee meeting be approved for July 11th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. to receive the 2024 budget forecast report.
Problem solved. Thanks very much, Mayor Burton.
All right. Is there any other question about item 10.2? Then I'll put the vote. Any objection to 10.2 as presented and just modified there? Madam Clerk, there's no objection. That carries. That brings us to the confidential discussion item 11.1. Oh, sorry. Just in, we have a request to delegate from Mr. Pierre Sauvageau, and he wants to speak to the 2022 financial results and surplus. Mr. Sauvageau, please come forward and share your information with council.
Good evening, Mayor Burton, councillors. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I thank the clerks for making me a delegate at this late moment. I specifically just want to address one item. I thank staff for their work done and having the surplus this year, which is great. There's only one on page 3 of 21. It's in regards to emergency services. There was a variance of $1.41 million. And I'm just wondering a little bit more information. I realize on page 8, it states specifically under emergency services, 1.41 million unfavorable. It says it relates to overtime as well as various sick leaves. I wonder if staff possible could elaborate as to the dollar amounts split between those two areas, as well as it shows majority of the 1.41 relates to personal services and benefits. I wonder specifically, why was there so much overtime? That's the bottom line. As well as the sick leave, is this usual for fire services? So it's something which I would like to question staff on. I know it's up to the mayor's discretion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing your questions or your information. You can stand down now, and I will ask staff to offer the additional information you're seeking. Commissioner Sully, which of your team member wants to take the question?
Through you, Mayor Burton. So on one of the questions asked by the delegate, I believe it was a breakdown on the overtime and the sick leave portions of that specific line item. I don't believe staff have that detail ready for you right now, but we could certainly provide it at a later point because it's quite detailed.
All right. He also asked if that amount of sick leave was normal or some words to that effect.
That I don't know the answer to. I don't know if the chief would be able to speak to that at all. Otherwise, we'd have to get back to you on that as well.
All right. Thank you. Chief, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor Burton and members of council. I can certainly get more specific numbers to you, but as you recall from early in 2022, the Omicron variant was certainly a worrisome adversary associated with emergency services. Given the fact that our fire services stay within the stations, that they are there for 24-hour shifts, any sick leave, any transmissibility, any type of possibility of spreading that through not only the station, but for vulnerable occupancies for which we respond to, our sick leave was definitely up higher than previous years. So I can certainly get the specific totals to you, but a large portion of that sick time and or overtime was attributable still to the COVID variant.
Right. All right. Thanks very much. And I'm sure that everybody looks forward to the additional information. Okay, Council, you have a recommendation from staff for 11.1. Is it agreeable to you? In which case I'll look for a motion, and otherwise I'll look for Councillor Giddings. Thank you. Any objection? There being none, congratulations, Councillor Giddings. Your motion is carried. It's now time to rise and report to Council. I need a mover for that. And Councillor Elger, we'll put you in the minutes now. Any objection to that? There is no objection, and so that carries. And I rise and report the Committee of the Whole has met and made recommendations on the consent items. Confidential consent item 9.1, discussion items 10.1 and 10.2, and confidential discussion item 11.1 as noted by the clerk. We now need a mover and seconder to adopt this report. Councillor Knoll and let's see who hasn't, and who hasn't? Councillor Grant, I'd be glad to take a second from you as well. So there we go. Any objection? There being none, that carries. Council, under new business, we have a notice of motion on Asian Heritage Month moved by Councillor Scott Shee and seconded by Councillor Jeff Knoll. But before we turn to that, I'd like to, because this is also the point where we offer congratulations and condolences and such, I'd like to congratulate the under 18 AA Rangers team who won the OHF tournament in Kitchener on the weekend. And it was a little bit of a come from behind story. And one of the best parts of the story is in the final game, it was the goal to hear one of the players who plays out. Those of you who've been a goalie dad like me will appreciate this. The players who played out gave the goalie the credit for winning the game because in at the end of the game, it was 6-on-4, and the goalie basically stood on his head to stop a wall of shots. So congratulations to them all. Now, Councillor Shee and Councillor Knoll, would you like to speak to your notice of motion, or would you like to just leave it until the next council meeting?
I would like to speak. So,
Councillor Shee, you have the floor.
so this is thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just go through read this motion.
Councillor Shee, you can say anything you want, but we won't vote on your motion until next council meeting unless you want to move waiving of the procedural bylaw and council agrees.
I would like to not wait to hear today.
All right, Councillor Shee, seconded by Councillor Knoll, no doubt, move that we waive the procedure bylaw so that we can consider his motion now. Is there any objection? Madam Clerk, there's no objection, so that carries. Councilor O'Meara, I'm assuming that you are on another matter so that we'll dispose of this and then we'll come to you. All right. Councillor Shee and Councillor Knoll, now you can speak to your motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas in May 2002, the government of Canada declared May as a Asia Heritage Month, which is celebrated across Canada to moderate the contributions of Asian to Canadian society. Whereas Oakville is a culturally diverse community with a significant Asian population. According to the 2021 census, more than half of Oakville's foreign-born immigrant population were born in Asian countries. Whereas the upcoming month of May is Asian Heritage Month in Oakville, and it presents an opportunity to acknowledge the contributions of Asian Canadians to the social, economics, and cultural fabric of Oakville and Canada as a whole. Whereas we must commit to take concrete steps to address or eliminate discriminations, racism, and hate crime in our community, and acknowledge the ongoing discriminations and racism that many members of the Asian community continue to face. Whereas the most positive step we can take is to provide opportunities for Oakville residents to learn more about and understand the diverse cultures and the traditions of Asian Canadians, and to engage in a cross-cultural dialogue and exchange. And whereas the town of Oakville currently provides programming to recognize Asian Heritage Month as a part of recreation and culture programs and the Oakville Public Library programs. Therefore, be reserved that though the town ongoing work on our inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility multi-year plan and the events plan, that we consider options to enhance programs which recognize the many contributions that Asian culture provide to the Oakville and Canada. And further that, the town work with the local communities organizations, schools, and business to raise awareness of Asian Heritage Month and promote inclusive and diversity in our community. And further that, these initiatives and the celebration of Asian Heritage Month will serve as meaningful recognition of contributions and accomplishments of the Asian Canadian community in Oakville, and will promote greater understanding and appreciation for the diverse cultures and the traditions that make our community so rich and vibrant. And further that, that's the month of May 2023 will be recognized as Asian Heritage Month in the town of Oakville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shi. Councillor Knoll?
Thank you, Worship. I don't have much more to add to that except to, first of all, thank Councillor Shi for giving me the honor and privilege of seconding this motion. This is an important a month to recognize a growing and very significant part of our Oakville community, and I think that it's going to be a wonderful month. I look forward to the activities that take place throughout the month of May, and thanks once again for the opportunity to second this motion, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to it.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Are there any other speakers? May I put the vote? Any objection to the motion? Madam Clerk, there being no objection, it carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Councillor O'Meara.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I want to start by thanking you and my other council colleagues who all joined this morning to celebrate Tourism Week across Canada. As many of you know, I do chair the Tourism Destination Board Visit Oakville, and we have some past chairs around the table here as well. But this is a week where we thank our tourism partners, we thank our hotels, we thank our restaurant partners, our attraction partners, the organizations like the Oakville Museum, you know, our even our staff who bring us such great trails and systems that draw everybody to tourism destinations all across Canada, but particularly here in Oakville. It's a tireless job sometimes. It's not always the highest paying job, but it is such an important job because it brings happiness and joy to so many people. And we want to thank everyone who works tirelessly in these industries and does such an incredible job for that. So thank you again for helping to raise the flag this morning, Your Worship, and to all those out in the tourism industry.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. I want to thank you for attending Game 2 of the Leafs Tampa series and turning around the karma that allowed everybody to win, that allowed our team to win. And I hope that if time permits, you'll be able to watch and bring some kind of remote karma magic to this game tonight. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. I have some great news for everybody tonight. I wanted to let members of council and anybody watching this evening know that Police Day is returning to Halton Region. For the first time since the pandemic, the Halton Regional Police are proud to sponsor another fun-filled day to learn more about the Halton Regional Police Service. This year, the event will take place on Saturday, May 13th, rain or shine, from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I have, for the 24 years I've lived, I believe, I may be calculating that wrong, lived in Oakville, always managed to bring children or grandchildren to the event. It is a wonderfully fun day, but it's a great opportunity to learn more about the terrific work that the Halton Regional Police Service do. It's an all-day free event. There's lots of displays, tactical rescue, canine demonstrations, police motorcycle demonstrations, the Halton Regional Police Service pipes and drums, interactive displays, inflatable amusements and games, and I may actually say a word or two, but don't let that scare you away. I hope that you'll circle the date in your calendar, Saturday, May 13th, rain or shine, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Halton Regional Police Headquarters at 2485 North Service Road West. Hope you can make it.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. I hope when you speak, you'll give the crowd some insight and wisdom about the Peel principles that guide our police service. Thank you very much.
Thank you for raising that. Every single opportunity I get, whether it's at the graduations, I always manage to include at least one of the principles, usually Principle 9, which is the one I think that we most commonly refer to: the police are the people and the people are the police. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank all the volunteers that were out on a very rainy, miserable, cold Saturday for the 32nd Earth Day cleanup. Councillor Haslett Thiel and I were out throughout Ward 3, and we were amazed, as I'm sure all of you were with your residents in your wards, in terms of the absolute numbers. It's reported that we're over 1,000 people working over 60 sites, over 8 metric tons. And I'd like a shout out for the Parks and Open Space team for sponsoring that. Company by the name of Film.ca contributed, and which was greatly appreciated. Pandago Pizza, and a whole lot of youth and groups that were out. And the town was looking a little bit better when the sun came up Sunday morning. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Sheik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just add one more about Asian Heritage Month. So we will have 2 big events next month. So I would like to invite all the council members and the staff to join us on the May 1st, 10 o'clock at the Town Hall, Asian Heritage Month flag raising and kickoff event. And on May 16th, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, so we will have a celebration night. So we expect 200 residents from Asian communities to participate. There will be a traditional music and dance performance for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sheik. Council, could I have a mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws? Councillors Chinna, Councillor Elgar. Oh, no, let's see, Councillor Elgar, you're in the minutes. Councillor Adams, I guess, we'll take for a seconder. There'll be a Ward 6 motion here. Councillor Chisholm, I don't want to ignore your hand. I just saw it, though.
That's okay, Your Worship. With these events coming up, is there a possibility through Councillor Shi and Councillor Noah, if there's any flyers or you can send it to us so we get through our networking for possible distribution?
Councillor, I am certain that they will.
Thank you.
You could call it done. It might even be on its way now. All right, so we have the bylaws moved and seconded. Is there any objection? There being none, Madam Clerk, the bylaws are considered read and passed. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting so that those who are of a persuasion to watch the Leafs beat Tampa can do that. The meeting is over. We've finished our work. Thank you, everybody.